Cool. So 6:17, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I haven't heard that anybody needed to be excused tonight, so I'm expecting the other two to show up, but we have a quorum, so we'll move forward. Tonight is a session based pretty much on the budget. We're going to ask our administrators questions on the stuff that they gave us last time around. We're going to hear kind of a presentation from Amber around the quote unquote full budget. We can ask our initial questions then, and then we'll take it home and dig into it more. So that's kind of the outline of the evening. But Patty, you had an item to take care of first.
So Wendy and I have been speaking with some of the teachers at the Hill School and planning for parent-teacher conferences. And in past years, we used to have an early release on that December, right before when the trimester was coming up, and the next day was a PD day. And we traded out that PD day so that we could have elections off because we had voters in the building at Three Rivers. And in losing that day, teachers have been really burdened with a significant number of hours that they need to make up on their own time, because elementary especially is where every parent wants to come and they want to have, you know, some time with their teacher. So we had a request for the board to consider having a no school day on, I think it's the 9th. Is it the 9th? On December 9th instead of an early release. And that would give teachers several more hours to plan for those conferences that are with their class size and the amount of time per parent. It's taking up a lot of time in their schedules that they don't really have right now.
Okay, questions? Are we good on instructional hours?
Yeah, so that's also another convenient, which really helps us right now because we have to have 990 in middle school and high school, but we only need 945 at the elementary school. So we do have plenty of excess hours that we won't lose instructional time.
Okay, so it's a calendar change, so you need a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion either way?
It's a December 9th early release day.
Is it just for Hill School or is it?
Yes, this would just be for Hill School.
So I move that December 9th be a day off for all Hill School employees for training.
It won't be a day off for the employees. It will be a no student day.
It'll be a no school
Yeah,
day.
thank you.
I move that we have a no school day on December 9th for the Hill School only.
Wait.
Second it.
All right, any other discussion? We did that first. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
You want to take care of quick before we?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Anything that you guys have before we get started? Okay, so last time we got kind of the building budgets from our administrators. We asked some quick questions. I know I've got a list of stuff. Do we want to go around the room, or do you guys want me to go ahead with mine and see if I hit some of yours, or what do you want to do? I've got a lot. I think I know the answers to a lot of them, though. I just want to make sure that I'm reading things correctly, so bear with me.
Andy, can I just ask you a question?
Absolutely.
I think your agenda said 15 minutes of public comment.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes, so let's go ahead and do that. So it's currently 6:21. We'll do 15 minutes public comment. Same rules as always, 3 minutes each. Please keep comments on topic and respectful. If there's anybody that wants to come up to the mic, now's the time. Okay, seeing none, then we will move on. Thank you very much. That's what I get when I don't have an agenda in front of me. Okay, are you guys okay? Do you have the similar thing to us? If I use the row number, you'll be able to know what I'm talking about? Okay. I mean, I can give you the code numbers, but
Road numbers didn't change.
they're hard.
Oh, some of them did change because she added
Okay. Well, I can
close.
yeah, I can translate from here to codes or whatever. Okay. So the first one was line 39. It's 321 for the Hill School consulting services. Shows a decrease of about $35,000. I'm wondering if that's moved or if we're maybe just trying to get closer to normal. Looking historically, the actual is kind of significantly lower than the voted. So I wasn't sure if we're cutting that number to get closer to what we actually expect, or if that money's just moved to a different line.
The money is not moved to a different line. We actually project that what services will be needed for English language learners. So we look at the students that we currently have in district, and there can be movement in and out. We may have less students. I think in a couple of our schools, we have less students next year that will need services, but that's based on usage. So it could be higher, it could be lower.
Ooh, okay. If I ask a question or they give a response and anybody wants to jump in with follow-ups, just go ahead. Next one was 126 through 130 last time. So this is supplies. And let me see what okay. So it looks like that, and that says it's a rotation. And it looks like last year we funded 2 subjects. Row 128. Sorry, it's 1100, 610. And this is 205 that I'm looking at. This is TRS that I'm looking at currently. So it says it's a rotation for supplies, and it's got a bunch of different classes listed. And it looks like in previous years we've funded supplies for multiple things. Last year it looks like it was math and PE, and so this year there's just one thing. It's just PE. Is that truly just a cut, or do we really not need anything in English, world language, mathematics, and music this year that would be included there?
Yeah, what I've done with the budget, with the supply line is most of the supply lines, with the exception of science, art, and phys ed, those are really specific supplies. The others are pens, pencils, paper, sticky notes. And so I've combined it all into the general supplies. And we do a list for the building that's how we generate that. So instead of having multiple lines of $150, $200 for pencils and pens, we put it into one line for general supplies for the building.
Gotcha.
So it's still there. It just goes under general supplies.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, sure does. Next one used to be 137. It's 1100, 610. So same area. What do they have here? Oh, it's computer supplies at TRS, and it's not a big number. Just curious. It's $1,500, which is the most in what we can see on this page as far as historically by quite a lot. Is that something that is we just have a lot of stuff that we need to replace this year, or is it something to do with the Chromebook cycle, or
Was it supplies or
it's a supplies computer?
Yeah,
mouse pads, headphones, things like that.
Yeah, really, it becomes some of it becomes power cords. We find that although hopefully we're in a better shape this year because they're not going home as much, but those type of things, when you have 350 machines going out and each power cord is, I forget what it is, $50 to $60, it doesn't take long for that to be wiped out pretty quickly. And as you know, it's not any good if you can't power it up.
Right.
So there is an increase there, yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Let's see ahead. I know the answer to that. What was row 171? It's 1100, 611, 205 computer parts. And my note was just that it more than doubled, so I was just curious.
Yeah, computer parts is not unlike the same. Like I said, we have a little repair shop that we have down there that, like when a screen is broken, instead of replacing the whole thing, we can replace the screen. Well, that's $50. We've done about 20 of them this year so far, and we're in November. So you can see how quickly that will go. It's a lot cheaper than replacing the whole thing. We just try to repair as much as we can. And I feel like having more money in there support that versus having to actually replace the whole machine.
Thank you. This one I think I asked last week. Maybe it's for Patty or Amber. I'm wondering what they were 177, 179, which was 1100, 612. The infrastructure lines we talked about, the WAPs and the NAS backups, and I was wondering if that was stuff that would make sense to do from a trust fund rather than in the operating budget.
So we did put Josh's letter that I told you about with his in tonight's packet. I think
Okay.
it's towards the end, just so that you can understand the technology piece of it, because that part I wasn't sure about. And 50% of our access points are covered by the E-rate fund. So he explains that portion of it. And then we did have conversation as a leadership team that, you know, at some point when you're talking about your warrant articles, it probably does make sense to do more with the technology trust fund that you had set aside. We initially thought of using that for things like servers, unexpected issues in technology that can be quite costly. But now that we have so many devices that we've purchased with grant funds, we're concerned about the replacement cycle, that it's going to be significantly more than it has been in the past. So that's a conversation for the board to have if you want to start setting money aside each year in smaller amounts. And then when it gets to the 5th year of one school needing, you know, a high number of replacements, you'll have the money in the trust fund, and it can come from unassigned fund balance instead of the initial raising of tax dollars. So that is a question that you'll, you know, that you will deal with when you're doing your warrant articles.
Okay. And I've just got a big long list, and I'm just going through it. So if you want to jump in, stop me. And then if I didn't cover something, I'll go around the room afterwards. 283, which was 1100, 737 replacement furniture and fixtures at PA. It's just a big number, and it's a big number even, you know, historically speaking, back to, you know, 1920, we spent like $700. So I see the items there, the 24 lab chairs. I'm wondering if this is kind of an abnormal year, and we expect this to be back in the $1,000 range going forward. It's just we're at a point where we have to make some bigger purchases, or is this something where we expect that number is going to stay higher for the foreseeable future?
Unfortunately, that number represents one classroom set of replacement stools, and so we have a few other classrooms that are going to need replacements in the next few years. So I can't say that this is a blip on the, you know, moving forward. We are probably going to be looking at replacing a classroom set each year until those are completely replaced. I mean, you know, we probably are going to be able to consolidate some of the ones that have aged better than others to make up a classroom set, and that will defray some of the costs. But you know, we have a number of classrooms that are going to need that.
Okay.
Andy, can
Yep.
I jump in? And that was one of mine also. I was looking at actually all three schools. We're looking at a grand total of 18,851 in that area. That's quite a large number. I know back in 2021 we're at 25,000. So that's a concern right there that I was looking at this point in time. So if we can work on something to maybe minimize those costs. Are there any trusts that would cover that kind of stuff?
Furniture?
No,
I don't
nothing.
think we do.
Okay.
It's not, you're not repairing anything.
Yeah.
That might be a good thing to note and keep in mind if we have surplus this year. It might be, you know, something that we could purchase at the end of the year to offset next year's budget. Okay, next one that I had was the heart rate monitors. I guess just wondering and I should have said before, I'm not I'm not saying I don't think any of this is needed. I'm just asking the questions. So if you could give a little of the kind of educational value of the heart rate monitors and what that program is going to look like, that's $1,700. So worth talking about.
Mm-hmm. The heart rate monitors are used in our life studies classes, fitness fundamentals, advanced topics, and they help the students calculate, caloric intake, expenditure, and all of that's based on heart rate and what physical activities in the gym look like in terms of nutrition and burning calories. So we've had heart rate monitors, and this is, for lack of a better term, a replacement cycle of the heart rate monitors that break, go missing, that sort
Okay.
of thing.
That was my next question, was if this was a replacement, and if you have an idea of what a lifespan on that sort of, I mean, I don't recall seeing them in the budget for the last few years.
Yeah.
So it's not something that we're buying every year.
Yeah, no, they they have been using them. I thought that was in the budget in previous years. They're always using them. It's a key part of their curriculum.
Thank you. 325, same area, 1100, 739, 306, new equipment, music. So there's a description in here, the lead steel pans and the second steel pans and the double guitar steel pan and the triple cello and all that. That sounds like a Are those pieces like one new thing that we're going to offer as an ensemble or something, or are they replacements or fill-ins?
So we have a world music class, and steel pans are a big part of that. With the nature of steel pans, it is kind of an ensemble where you need 8 different, pans to create, basically an ensemble. So we have, I believe, 2 of those.
So that we can have 3 groups going at the same time. So
Gotcha.
it's essentially like, you have a piano that covers 11 octaves. It takes X numbers steel pans to do the same thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Operated by 4 different people.
Okay. Let's see. 374 through 79, summer programming.
Andy, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure thing.
I wasn't really sure what the number that you were just discussing, but I would like to look at, let's see, line 299, where we have 225 Chromebooks to be replaced at 67,000. No? Oh, thank you. So what I'm looking at is 225. So we approximately have about 800 students.
Yeah, about 775 right now.
So we'll replace at least 225 every year.
So that's the incoming freshman group coming in. That's approximately 200 to 225, and the Chromebooks would be going to them. And then they would have the same Chromebook for all 4 years.
Okay, so the seniors who are leaving, their Chromebooks are just out of date?
Most of them are. And the
Okay.
ones that aren't, we'd be able to salvage screens or keyboards, things that break.
Sure.
Yeah. So we would do that. They also turn into loaners for students that have either lost theirs or have damaged it and haven't paid for a repair, that sort of a thing. But one of the things that happens is, for those Chromebooks that are 4 or 5 years old, they can no longer keep up with the Google Chrome updates.
Right.
And so then there's functionality that they can't do.
Okay.
Yep.
So we should see about that number every single year
Approximately that, yeah.
for freshmen.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Andy.
Yep.
And that was one of my areas right there, and I was pretty much looking again at all 3 schools. It's a lot of money. 103,000, 104,000 for all 3 schools on a year by year basis. Is that something we can look at out of the technology trust?
Yeah. That was one of the sections that I was thinking would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that's a really good idea, because that's one of those things where when we were not early in this game, having each kid have a Chromebook thing, we probably could be considered late to the party. So I don't want to be that one school that doesn't have nice things. I think it's something we have to provide, but if we can fund it through there, and especially because we know it's something like you said, we should see a similar number year over year. It seems like it's something we can plan for, which is usually the good stuff. Cool. Okay. Let's see. The summer programs. The next one. 1,200, 115, and 117 overall. There's a couple things that cancel each other out there with some plus thousands and minus twos and whatever, but there's a $10,000 increase in the Hill School line, and then just wondering what that one is.
So those are based on specific student needs. So when Karen meets with the special ed coordinators and the building administrators, we sit down and look at the students that we currently have, and obviously a year in advance are trying to project how many students are going to need summer services and how many hours they're going to need. So it's all based on our current population.
Okay. Okay. Next was 396 through 398, which was how many pages? Contracted services. Some big decreases there. I'm assuming that's another just need based on the kids that we have type of thing.
It is, yes. So the preschool tuition for the SAU preschool program, or no, that's special placements. I'm sorry, take it back. Contracted services where things like physical therapy would be when we contract out for any specific behavioral interventions, the RBTs that you've probably heard mentioned. That's where those services go, and we are in the process of trying to train our own paras to be RBTs, but absent that, it's a required service in an IEP, so we have to contract out if we don't have qualified staff.
Okay. Is that one that I could request we get just so some of that information into that note?
Sure.
I think
Yep,
that
we can do that. No problem.
big dollar amounts in those lines. I think people would be interested to know.
Yeah, Karen has a good explanation sheet that talks about
Okay.
each of those lines, so we can put that in there.
And want to think maybe take a look into the future. I won't have anything really to do with this budget, but finding out the cost effectiveness, like we were discussing earlier, about getting our staff trained
Mhm.
versus having an outside contractor.
Yep. We have a teacher at Hill School in one of the programs who's just finishing up, and that's going to be it's going to be great to have our own employees trained. I would rather do that than have people coming in from outside. We have really loyal people to the district that are here and have a vested interest in our community, so it's definitely the avenue that we are exploring.
Can I ask a quick question on that? So if we do that and staff do go, it's going to be the full RBT training where they're going to be sitting and taking the RBT licensing test too?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Next one I had was 617. It's 1410 737, and this is PA. And so this is a reduction of $2,000. I'm sorry, it's co-curricular replacement equipment. It's a reduction of $2,000, which is great. But I just noticed that's like historically very low. The last couple of years we've voted $15,000. So to go from there down to 4, is it just a lucky year where we don't need stuff, or have there been programs that have gone away, or?
No big shifts on programming. I believe that was just looking at what we're anticipating spending, and it doesn't look like we're going to need that 15,000 moving forward.
I don't have the notes with me, but it seems, am I remembering correctly, Dan, that in years past there might have been a big purchase like cheerleading mats or
Yep.
something that was more costly that might not be co-curricular supplies, but sometimes there are replacements that need to be made, and then the next year there might not be any.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, thank you. Next one I had was 677 through 679, which is diagnostic services. 2123 330.
Yes. So there is a note at the bottom that applies to all three schools. So that's the Fund 4 budget that Karen presents at the SAU level every year. And that's where the occupational therapists and school psychologists are hired through the SAU office. And then their time is divided in the schools. So that's based upon usage, however much time a school needs of a school psychologist or an occupational therapist. That's the only portion that you pay for.
Okay, so just another need-based.
It's an IEP service that's
Okay. And on the same page 687, testing. There's a note on this one, and I know that Dr. Morse talked about it a little bit last time. I just felt like I needed to ask the question because I mean, $15,000 for testing is a lot of money. It's a $5,000 increase from last year. So I think if I'm understanding this correctly, one of the things is we are an SAT site, right? So our kids can take the SAT in their own school, which there's definitely, I understand, an advantage to. Does the test cost less for them if they take it here? Or I guess where I'm going with
Yep.
this to give you some direction is I'm wondering at what point the cost doesn't make sense anymore. I don't know what market rates are. I don't know if this is comparable to other things, but if it comes down to, someday we're looking at, we need to drop 30 grand on this, or the choice is they can
Mhm.
just drive to Concord and take the test. Somewhere there's a line where it doesn't make sense anymore. I'm just wondering if we're getting close to that.
Yeah, I mean, far be it for me to defend the College Board, but I will say that the SAT is also our state mandated test, and what we do is we exercise the option of having that SAT with essay so that students that take it don't have to pay for an SAT for college acceptance later. The one that they take during the school day here counts for that.
Okay.
So
That's like $100 a kid or something?
yeah,
That test is not
Yep.
cheap.
no, it isn't, and
so
it's disruptive too.
just to clarify though, the state pays for all but the essay portion. So it's a
Yep.
small amount per student that in years past the board voted to say, yes, we want every student to take the essay portion. And that's what Dan was referring to. If you do the entire test, then it counts towards your
Gotcha.
college acceptance.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
And then in addition to that, we offer the PSAT to sophomores. We don't mandate that every sophomore has to take it, but if they decide to take it, we pay for that. In addition, what we would like to do moving forward is to pay for the $100 exam for each student that takes an AP class.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right.
That's the part that I forgot from what you said that last time.
Right.
Okay.
Now, one thing that since our last meeting that I hadn't considered is that cost also factors in table rentals.
Yeah.
Because College Board, you have to have 8-foot tables. You can only have 2 people. They have to be, it's a whole thing. But we actually have a number of 8-foot tables that we now own from COVID, actually, and social distancing in the cafeteria and stuff. So factoring that in, we probably can lower that number a little bit more.
Okay. That's good. I forgot about the AP piece. That's my fault. Let's see. I had 754, which is 2212, 110, 104 curriculum development stipends.
Andy, I had a question before that line.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you mind?
Nope, not at all.
I had a question on the what line is that? So 738, 737, the new equipment. It looks for like the CPR mannequins.
Yeah, the PA. It's
I just had so
2139, 731, 306.
my question is, I think we talked about it last time. So we will have a full CPR mannequin so the staff can train other staff.
Yeah,
Is that
so
what it is?
that's right. So our nurse is a certified trainer,
Okay.
but she does not have a mannequin to do that.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's only the 824. I just wanted to check because I know like for CPR, it's up to like $200 to $300 a person to do it. So even if there was, like, is it going to be district or just that school? So like if there's an IEP kid that needs to have a CPR, are we going to be able to train our people? I guess that's my question. Are we going to be using this?
We can put that out to Allison. She's the trainer, so I wouldn't want to speak for her, but depending on when she's offering the trainings, I would think she
Yeah.
would be open to that. If we
Yeah,
needed
I
someone.
don't have a problem with it. But
Yeah.
it's actually more cost effective
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
taking it yourself. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, curriculum development stipends 2212 110 104. It's a 50% increase from last year, but I'm also interested in the history because in 1920 there was nothing. Then we voted in 2021 2400, and it looks like we didn't use it, which I'm guessing might have been we paid with some COVID money or something. And then last year we voted 2400, but then it's getting bumped this year. So I'm just wondering kind of the history and what that one is.
So in 2021 it was because of COVID and that work we did not do. This year it's the curriculum work we're doing, especially to work on our intervention systems and build those. And that's the anticipated of the work the staff would need to do for this year and then going into next year, specifically to help remediate some of that work that's going on this year with following COVID.
Okay.
I cannot speak unfortunately to 1920 and
That's
her,
okay.
yeah, 1920 year.
So I guess I just want to understand kind of what this is, only because I know we have a curriculum director, curriculum coordinator at PA, and we have a curriculum person at the SAU office. So I'm just wondering how this is different.
That actually pays our staff members. So a lot of the work is done during the summer. So we pay them a stipend to come in and do the work. So we
Gotcha.
provide the PD for them if it's PD, or that we're just giving them time to work on curriculum as teams.
Okay.
So it's to pay our own staff.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, skipping ahead to what was 889 through 891, which is
Andy, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
On line 782 for books, it says books to support our thoughtful classroom interactive
Initiative. Yep.
What is that?
So the Thoughtful Classroom is a new, we've rolled that out this summer for the leadership team, and we are hoping at some point to use it as our new evaluation system. So right now we've provided with grant funds, the person that actually wrote all the books has come out in the summer and worked with us for 3 days. And we're looking at rolling that out continuously to our staff. It's probably going to be a 2 to 3 year plan. And we've started that work, and we're going to order them some of the books that go along with it.
Okay, so the staff is supported by a grant.
Yes, the person that came out and did the PD was paid for by a grant, but we're going to buy our staff members the books that go along with Thoughtful Classroom.
Oh, thank you.
Next one I had was 889. It's 2290, 322. I'm looking at TRS, but I think it was all of them. Workshop reimbursement. There's total like a $10,000 increase between those lines. Just curious as to what the difference is.
That is the amount that's negotiated in the collective bargaining agreements. So it's just split between the schools proportionally, but that's the total that was bargained for in the current contract.
Okay. So that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a fixed cost.
Thank you. Next one is like 1,032. So if anybody has any between here and there, jump in. 1032 was 2490, 240. And so yeah, so it's actually at least the PA line is stable. The Hill School line is almost 3 times as much. And I think what caught my attention more is it's like double anything that we've had historically for an actual, at least in the limited picture that we have here. So, going back to 1920, we actually used 4480 and we're asking for 8,800. So just wondering what the difference is there.
That's dependent upon which staff members are actually taking courses and working on degrees. So, you may have 2 teachers at Hill School working on a master's degree, and then when they're finished, you may have none, and you may have someone at Three Rivers working on it. So it just depends on where the teachers are located that are currently taking courses.
And that's a contractual benefit too,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see, all the maintenance contracts, I think it's 1040, 1045, 1050. So $24.90, $4.30 for each of the buildings.
So Josh Berube puts that together for all of our districts, and we save by getting one license, one SAU license, and then he gets everyone I hope I'm saying this right, their individual school licenses. So we, if we have a testing program and we say we need 200 licenses for Pembroke, he'll give us that, breakdown of that proportionate cost of whatever that may be. And that list can, I know, look confusing when you're looking at it, but Alma is our student information system. My learning plan is the MLP, and that's what we use for our professional development. So we have the license at the SAU, and then each employee may cost, X number of dollars, and that's where the Pembroke employees are covering that cost in that line.
Okay.
So there's a whole list of programs that we use
Yep,
throughout the district.
that makes sense. And sadly, I do understand software licensing. But I'm wondering if just because the increases are so big,
Yeah.
and again, I understand software companies and how they raise prices too, but I'm just curious if there's anything in this list, or maybe not in this list, that's new. Is there anything that we're buying for the first time this year, or re-upping for a multi-year contract or something like that?
Amber's thinking the help desk is new, but I would feel more comfortable confirming that with Josh
Okay.
Berube, since that's the area that he's in charge of.
That sounds good.
Yeah, Andy, I think Go Guardian is relatively new also. Started
Yeah.
kind of last year,
Yeah.
and it's new for us.
Okay. 1289, which is 2660, 330. The school resource officer.
Yep.
So there's a big decrease there, and I'm hoping that doesn't mean we have a decreased presence.
No, we have a daily rate that we're charged by the police department, and each year we just try to estimate how many days we'll be able to contract with Officer Weber. Sometimes they're shorthanded and they have to kind of pull him back to the PD. So he is a police officer employed by the town, and then however many days we get to use his services in the district, we pay a daily rate for that. So we just try to estimate how many days he'll be in the district.
Okay, so this is significantly less than what was voted last year. So is that a reflection of we think that PD is going to be busier and not be able to spare him, or we're not going to need him as much, or?
To be honest, what I did is hello? What I did is I went back for a few years and looked at the average amount of hours we were contracting the police officer for. And so I used that average number of hours with our rate, and so that we could accurately or a little more closely align with what we're actually spending rather than doing the full contracted amount.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that makes sense now. Now that you say that,
Yeah.
looking back at the history, because the actuals are 15, 19, and now
Yeah.
we're talking 23, where
Yeah.
looks like we've been approving more money than we needed. So
We used to take the daily rate and just multiply it by 180 days of school.
gotcha.
But there's no way he's able to be here 180 days. So I think Amber's just trying to average and come up with
Good.
an estimate that's so that we're not encumbering too much money.
Gotcha. And do you have a question?
Yes. What line number is that?
In last week's packet, it was 1289. I'm not sure where.
Okay, so my only question is, did we check with the chief to find out what his salary is? Because the selectmen 2 meetings ago voted in raises for them currently and then going forward. So that's going to increase. Just FYI, the cost will increase there. Or it might not.
Yeah.
Just for there's more.
It's an
We-
estimate. I know
Yeah,
it's hard.
we
yeah.
gave all the officers raises.
I'm almost done, I promise. I've got like a few more. 1294, so we're not going far. Oh, bus contract. So I understand this one a lot, and I don't want to, but I guess I'll soapbox for a minute. Going back a meeting or two, I think we mentioned here that Deerfield had come to all of us and kind of asked opinions on if we wanted to go with them on a letter to kind of push the bus company a little bit on options for next year. And I just wanted to bring it up again in the face of, looking at this, we're talking about between the three schools, an increase of $16,000 next year. And to be blunt, that's a $16,000 increase after a couple of years of what I would consider very subpar service.
So just to clarify, we don't know what the increase will be because we're going to be starting a brand new contract. So
Okay.
we have to put the RFP out. And at this point, Amber estimated an increase, but hopefully sooner rather than later, we can get the RFPs out and get some bids so that we can get some accurate numbers in there.
Okay.
But right now, it's really an estimate. That's not a price that came from Dale.
Okay, thank you for that. So I guess I would just say I'm interested, when we have the resources to do it at kind of talking more with Deerfield and or a study of districts in the state that have their own buses and operate their own garages and pay their own drivers and their own mechanics and things like that. And, I think that could be a initial large upfront cost, but I think, in the long term, it could end up saving Pembroke, not just money, but stress on the families and on you guys having to deal with this stuff. I'll shut up about it. I'm just kind of fed up with the whole busing situation.
We've also had conversations as an administrative team because, sorry, we were almost on time with 6 buses, and now we have 7 buses, and we're doing great. So we don't believe that we need 8 buses. So
Okay.
that's something else that we're going to take a look at. It's a little bit unusual now that we are having more parents drop off than in the past, but I don't think it's a significant enough number that it would be a whole bus. So
Okay.
there's the potential that we could go down to 7 buses.
That's good to know. Okay, 2 more. 1305, which is 20. So I guess it was all. Just curious. There's like 12 grand increase in just summer transportation.
So that's again work that Karen does with our
That's
special ed staff. Yeah, so it's dependent upon our current students and who will need a summer program and how we will get them
That's
there.
right. I missed the heading. This is
That's
special
okay.
education. Sorry. And the last one I have is field trip expense. So I know John talked about that one a lot last time, but I couldn't remember all the details. I think what you said was that the major increase there is to cover a bunch of the transportation for the 2 big trips. Is that right?
That's
It's
correct.
just
Yeah. 2,000 for
buses.
6th grade and 5 for 8th grade.
Okay. I thought that was it. I just wanted to double check. Well, that was fun. Who else has stuff? That's what somebody can get accomplished in 5 hours of bagpipe band practice every week. Okay. Seriously though, any other questions about the stuff we got last week? Is there anything else that was in that one, Patty, that you know of, or Amber, that is like the buses that might be unsettled, or that I know it's early and everything's kind of subject to some change.
The health
but-
insurance rate came in, which Amber will review with you. So those are pretty set. We're still working on the food service budget, and we still have employee increases to do. So those are some things that aren't quite finished yet.
Okay. I guess administrators, it's up to you and or Patty if you want to stick around for whatever Amber's doing. I want to be respectful of your time. I don't know how much input you're going to have on her piece, but if you feel like you want to go, I'm completely fine with that.
I'm also happy if somebody thinks of a question after they leave. I'm happy to write it down and get you an answer right away.
Are
So-
the rest of the board okay with that?
I didn't hear a thing you said, Andy.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
sorry. I was just saying
Can
that if
you
we're
just take the mask
yeah,
off
we're-
when you talk?
we're going from talking about the building budget from last time to Amber's bigger budget. So I was just saying I'm okay with them leaving if they want
Oh,
to.
absolutely. I do have a question before
Yeah,
they go.
yeah.
Every year we talk about size of classrooms. So have we discussed the size that we anticipate for each classroom? And is there a way to reduce the amount of classes we have?
You don't have
That-
We have a form for that, and we'll I'll make sure we have it at the next meeting. We don't have it tonight, but it shows the class sizes in each grade level and how many teachers there are.
Okay,
So we'll make sure that's in the next packet.
thank you.
And I think it's also important to note on there for everybody that, in case you're not aware, we as a board have a policy on that too. So I don't know the letter. I can look it up
get
for you.
I'll get it.
But we have a policy going back a ways on what our targets for those things are too. So that's something that we can look at.
The only other question I have is on PACE, but I guess that's for Patty. So
Case
I'm all
is,
set with-
is definitely closed, so we don't need any tuition there.
I can't, not a single word, Patty.
PACE is closed,
Yes,
so we have no tuition for that program.
correct. But what I'm looking at is the reimbursement back to the town. I mean, back to the district because they did close the surplus or,
I think I know the answer.
I
to
do
that.
too.
Everybody. So the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, is that should happen, but it won't happen until they're officially closed, which can't happen until it gets voted on at the March meeting. So I don't know when after, but sometime after that, assuming that the vote succeeds, then whatever assets are remaining would come back.
right, because they didn't have a quorum for the last couple of meetings, right?
Right. And I think they have
They
now.
did
I think
have-
they had a meeting and they voted, but it has to pass has to be a warrant article.
Right.
And until the warrant article passes, the money doesn't go anywhere. It just sits there.
And
That's what Clinton said.
and in addition to that, this sale will have to go through, and any assets after that.
Right.
Yes,
So depending on, you know,
could be
where they're
none.
at, it could be nothing.
Right, right,
So it won't be anything out of our pockets,
correct.
but it could be nothing.
Right. And the last question I had is that on line 1436, it says lunch services to all 3 schools. Didn't we do lunch service to PACE? They had their own lunch services?
we did. We delivered.
Not-
no,
no,
Strong
not to PACE,
Foundations. I'm
no.
thinking.
We
I'm
do
sorry.
strong foundations, but
Yeah.
not PACE.
Oh, they were on their own?
They were.
Thank you.
They did inquire
Mhm.
to see if we could help out, but we just were stretched too thin at the time, so we couldn't.
Okay, but we still do strong foundations?
We do.
So that doesn't, does that show up in the budget anywhere?
That's part of the
cost?
food service budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. If that's it, then I will turn it over to Amber.
And principals are good to go?
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so in your budget, you'll notice that there's several lines that are in yellow. But before I even do that, I just want to take a quick second, just because I haven't had the opportunity to see you face to face in this forum, and I just want to thank you for your patience, through these last several months. I know this strategy was a little bit different this year, but I do appreciate it and hope that while not the full budget came through the first round, that we had enough information for you to really dive into. And after just hearing conversation the last, hour or so, it seems like there was a good amount for you guys to kind of dive into to be able to see really what the meat of this budget is, and not strictly focus on the salary portion. So I appreciate your patience, and thank you. I appreciate it.
If I could quickly, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I actually loved it. I thought it was great to be able to focus on one piece before we got the entire thing, because I think sometimes, I mean, it's such a big document, you can kind of get lost in it. So I certainly wouldn't be opposed to doing it that way in the future, kind of getting that first chunk a little bit early and diving in. I thought it was great.
So I approach this the same way I have in previous years. For those that are new, whenever there's a budget that comes forth, I will, if there's a change from one meeting to the next, I will color code it in yellow so that it stands out so that you know what lines have changed. So the majority of the yellow that you're going to see in this budget would have dealt with either positions or fringe benefits. There were a couple small changes that Hill School had made. Other than that, it's really strictly the salaries and benefits. Okay. So on page 3, And if I added a comment, any notes to it, I also color coded those so that you knew what notes were new as well. So on page 3, I've added in the teacher salaries and the tutor salary, aides, and I had changed the consulting services, which is on line 37. That's just an updated number than the last one that you had received in your previous packet. So the big change here, these include any increases that would be in a CBA. On line 28, we put a note in there that there's 4 kindergarten paras. So that's what that line is representing. On page 4, again, the only thing I changed on this was updating the consulted services because we received some refined figures. Those are on lines 43 and 47. On page 5, the change in here, they did not request a change here. I just calculated the dollar values that were over to the left. And in order for those to match, there was a slight dollar change in that line. So it's very slight from the last time you saw it. They just coincide now. There's a couple of those throughout the budget. Page 6, no changes. Page 7, again, on line 150 and 156, again, those were adding up the numbers that were over on the left in the notes and making sure that those matched to the attributed budgeted allotment. Page 8, I had a request from Hill School to add some dollars in there for the infrastructure. And it's the same as we had discussed earlier. It's those access points. The detail to those is actually on the very last page of this budget packet. And on 178, I just refined that figure again to match the dollar values that were over on the left. They were not asking for anything more in that particular line. There are no changes on page 9 or 10 or 11. On page 12, on line 299, again, that was just me refining the number to make sure that it matched the dollar value we had listed on the left. Minor changed. I think it was literally a couple $100. Page 13, no change. Page 14, I've added in the special ed salaries. We did put in a note on line 361. I know there's a $82,000 difference in that line. It's because we needed to add an additional teacher per a student's IEP. So that's required. The other yellow on this page is also attributed to salary. So I've added in the teacher salaries and the aide salaries. We did have a para CBA last year, so those amounts are reflected in this budget as well. I want to say, I think off the top of my head, and I have a lot of numbers going on up there, I think it was like 73,000 or so that was voted in for this, for 22-23 for the CBA. On page 15, the on line 419, again, I just took a look at the number on the left, calculated that, and refined that figure as well. So minor change there. Page 16, 17, no changes. Page 18, line 491, that's the vocational program, that's the teacher salary, so that's been added. No changes on 19 or 20. On page 21, what's been added here is on 568 and 586 and 587. I have added in your document tonight the co-curricular listing, so that is in your document. There was some changes that the district made, so that is a change that's been reflected here. It's a couple $100 has been taken out of that line. And then I've added the athletic director salary, which was not previously there. On page 22, on line 632 and to 635, I've added the guidance salary. No changes on page 23 or 24. On page 25, I've added the nurse's salary. No changes on page 26. On page 27, on line 783, we talked about this earlier, it was the Thoughtful Classroom Initiative. There originally wasn't an amount in there, so I've added that in there per the request of the principal. I've also added in the library salary as well as the media generalist salary right down below on 791 through 794 or 793. There are no changes on page 28 or 29, 30 or 31, or 32. On page 33, I've added in the salaries for the principal, assistant principal, at-risk coordinator, and director of curriculum. Those are lines 973 to 980. So those amounts reflect the current contracts unless there's a multi-year contract in place. On page 34, I've added in salaries for secretaries. That's on line 989 through 991. I've also added in the tech support salaries. Those are on lines 1004 through 1009. And you're going to notice over on the right on column R, the difference column, there looks like a substantial change there. Really what's happened there is we've just distributed the amount of hours that they're working through the buildings. So if you add them up, really there isn't that big of an increase. It's just the fact that we've redistributed their time throughout the buildings. On page 35, 1014, that's our tech summer support. That's the extra days for our tech integrators in our summer support. They do a lot of work over the summer to get us ready for the new school year. On page 36 and 37, no changes. Page 38, we have a change on lines 1119 through 1021. That's our custodial salaries. So those have been added. No changes on page 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, and 44. So the next change occurs on page 45.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and this is obviously always a big topic of discussion. So on this page, on page 45, lines 1346 and down, you'll see over on the left, I've got highlighted in yellow. We have received our increases from our healthcare. They are stating that our increase is going to be 8.5 for our green and red plans and 9.5 for our yellow plans. So the numbers that are reflected in column Q, which is our proposed column, reflects what our current employees have and its associated increase. The other thing that comes into this is you can't take the voted and do the percentage because there's also plan changes that occur, and we've also had personnel changes. So those also occur. I did take a look at, line the Hill School and PA because their amounts were significantly higher. And while I recognize that there is an increase, PA jumped out at me in particular. And so I went back and looked and compared at what our budget roster was for this current year compared to what's going to happen next year. And there were several plan changes that went to a family plan. There were also some individuals that had declined the benefit and now are enrolled in the benefit. So those are also the changes that occur that can obviously inflate that line.
Quick question on
You
that.
You sure can.
Because I really don't know this. Is open enrollment now, is the health insurance for like 1/1? Are you guys July or 10/1? Like what is
We're
your
July.
July?
Yep.
So we should have an idea of the current employees, right? Because that would go through June 30th of next year. So it
Yep.
should be kind of accurate.
Yep.
Okay.
It should be very close. I mean,
Okay.
there are usually there's not as many people moving in a plan. I don't know why that particular happened in this
Yeah.
particular year. Every now and then it will happen. Usually it's a little more distributed out into
Yeah.
the schools. This just happened to be one lump sum in this particular school.
So this should be, yeah, pretty accurate unless there's like a huge life-changing event. They wouldn't be changing. Okay.
Correct.
Or
Yep,
we
unless
hire a
somebody
whole
gets
bunch.
married or has a child.
Exactly.
Or, yep,
Okay.
or gets divorced or whatever life circumstance might throw at them.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a quick question. Last year you said this year you're going to go out for RFP or the next year for
Well,
these?
we went out, we did reach out to vendors last year and we reached out to a couple, and the response we received is that that no one could come close to the current rates we had.
Okay.
They were actually surprised, even though I know I'm telling you this is a large increase comparatively to what's out there in the market right now. Our rates are lower than what's out there.
Oh yeah, some got 21%.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of it has to do with the way that they're able to pull together their claims, their utilization claims.
Yes.
It helps to drive down the increase. But with that said, I mean, we went to, the big vendors throughout the state to see what we could do, and everybody, two big, I think it was Unifund was one of the big ones, and Health Trust and Unifund couldn't come even close to what we currently have for rates.
Oh, okay. So that was done
That was done last
last
year.
year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On a positive note, our dental went down 3%.
Yeah, didn't
So-
it go up 1% last year?
It went up, actually, I think it went up 2.5 last year.
Because it hasn't gone up for years.
Right. It was flat for several years. And then last year, I think it went up 2.5%, if I can remember correctly. And now it's going down 3. So we've got a little bit of savings. And obviously, again, that depends on plan changes, personnel changes. So while it may not seem like a huge change in some of these lines, it could depend on what personnel changes that have also occurred.
And then just FYI, nobody could go to the dentist. So that's why our claims experience is really down. So this is going to go back up next year. Just FYI. Yeah.
You're trying to burst my bubble?
Yeah. It's such a good price,
No,
though.
I was so excited. I'm like, finally, some good news.
Yeah.
All right. So below that, the lines that follow those are all fringe benefits. Those are all associated with the current rosters that we have and whatever increases that are on these rosters. So any additional increases that occur after that's decided would be additional on top of what's here. We do budget those all in one line, the pool at the end of the budget. But what's represented here is currently what our salaries are.
Can I just ask a quick question?
You sure can.
I know the teacher's retirement, it's gone up. Now it's 21 and other ones are higher.
Yep.
So how did we have a decrease? Is that unfortunately a death of a retiree? There's 3 lines here. We have decreases in retirement for non-certified.
Well, there's plan changes too. So we could have had, when we have, not a plan change, excuse me, a personnel change. So they could have come in at a lesser salary, and it's based off their salary.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, the other thing, Andy, you asked earlier about what wasn't in here, that just sparked my memory. We don't have teacher retirement in here yet for retirees. That's due December 1st. So we can't act on that until the business meeting after that. So those will also need to be added in.
And as Patty had mentioned also, the food service budget, while it is in here, an amount is in here, the budget itself is not in your packet. We are still working on that. I met with Donna, and we are refining her budget. And once we have a refined number, we will add it in here. But for now, I just took what we budgeted for this current year and added that to this budget so that there was a number reflection. Otherwise, it would look like there was a huge, I didn't want there to be a huge fluctuation the next time we came because we knew it would be somewhere around there. So we wanted to show something this evening, but I just want you to know that we are working on that and you will have that for your next meeting.
I've got, anybody have questions right off the bat? Got one quick one.
Okay.
So I think Patty had said that this doesn't necessarily include raises. Obviously, the CBA for both the paras and teachers, those raises are in here, but more raises that are at the discretion of the board are not. But looking, I guess I'd just like some clarification because it looks, looking at page 25 at the nurse salaries, they're up a small percentage, which looks to me like a raise. Principals, custodians, it looks like there's some increases. So I'm wondering who is not represented as a raise in this budget.
So some of the increases that you're seeing, like for nurses, they're covered by the collective bargaining agreement,
Okay.
so their salaries are already set for next year. But the principals and some of the others will show an increase because we moved the pooled amount that was voted on up into their salary lines for this year. So that's their current salary.
Gotcha.
Because they all received an increase that you voted on last year.
Understood.
Do you understand what that means, Melanie? Okay. Just want to make sure. You're welcome.
And then I do, whenever you're ready, I do have estimates for, I helped Amber today, so I'll say this with hesitation because she hasn't reviewed my work. I worked on the increase charts just to try to get an estimate. So I have those total numbers depending on what you want us to populate into the budget. Do you want me to read those to you?
As soon as I find a page that I want to write this information on.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question for what we just went over? I know you guys said we would talk more about trust and stuff, but don't we have a special education trust? So
do.
like my question is on that 361 line where we had to add a teacher based on a student's IEP, that doesn't come from the trust. So
No. So the special ed trust fund is for it could if we get into trouble this year. So if our special education lines have an unexpected increase and we are running short in those lines, you can vote to transfer money out of the trust. So we haven't had to do that in many, many years, but it is there if we need to access it.
okay, just curious.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions before we hear Patty's estimates on what salary increases would add to the bottom line?
Andy, I just have a couple.
Sure.
So when we get to we're looking for a 5.41 increase. So when we get to the budget committee, they're comfortable at 4. Did we look at getting lower? Because I know you're going to say everybody came with a pie in the sky, and we got them down to this amount. Do you feel absolutely comfortable at 5.4, or did we look like we can get in? We were closer to 4% increase.
Did you just say the budget committee was comfortable at 4? I didn't hear that number.
I didn't hear you at all, Patty.
Did you say that the budget committee was comfortable at 4%? Have they said that?
In the past, they have
okay.
always said they feel comfortable at the maximum of 4% because the last couple of years, I know it's been a lot more.
Yes, this is the first time we have the bottom line number, so we have not gone back and made any cuts yet.
Okay.
I
And
think there's 2 pieces to that, right? One is that's kind of we're going to we should look and suggest those things of areas that we as a board think we might be able to lower things, but also that's probably not a good number to go on yet because of the increases that we're going to talk about right now, or the possibility of those increases, and over the other things, retirement or something else for food service. So that's So I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is this is initial and still fluid.
and the second question I have is, can we get a list of these sorted by schools? So how much each school cost us? So get a list of probably an Excel of how much the 306 is, how much 104, the total.
I can do
We-
that once I get my hands on the Excel sheet.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Or Amber will send it to you.
Because I know that's something also the budget committee
Yeah.
usually asks for too.
It's
So I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah,
it
and I'll
just-
forward this to the budget committee tonight or tomorrow. But Jerry also always wants a copy of the Excel one so he can manipulate, and I'll make sure he gets that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Patty, I guess if you want to go ahead with that.
So rough numbers, this does not include food service, but rough numbers of 2% increase for everyone that's not covered would be 29,859. 2.5% would be 37,324. And 3% would be 44,789.
Okay, so you guys have to tell me what you are comfortable with as far as I mean, are there things that you want to drill into more tonight? Do you need the time to sleep on it and dig into it and come up with questions? Do you want to have a discussion around kind of what our target percentage increase number is so that we can give Patty some direction on where we want to get to? I mean, kind of where we go from here tonight is up to everybody.
Typically, Patty, we look at 2 to 3%, correct? In this, on the increases.
3% increase?
Oh,
Yeah.
on the salary
Yeah.
increases,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
typically,
I thought you
okay.
meant the bottom line, sorry.
I did too, that's why.
No.
Yes.
still-
Yes, it's usually.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, my first opinion on that, I guess if we want to talk a little bit about those increases, of course every dollar matters. To me, $45,000 is kind of small change to give people some increase, and I would go so far as to say I would rather find $45,000 to cut elsewhere in the budget to provide our employees with an increase. Especially this year, we all know inflation is at like 8%. Even a 3% increase is actually a pay cut when you look at it. So I would be in favor of doing everything that we can to find, either add that $45,000 on, or if people are more comfortable finding it somewhere else in the budget that we can take it out. And do you know offhand if town employees are getting something other than a COLA? Are they getting a raise? And do you have any idea what the percent might be?
There is a raise. I don't know the number.
Okay, I've got budget committee Thursday, so I can find out. But
I can find
I'm
out.
assuming I assumed they were getting a raise. I just can't fathom doing, nothing for them.
It's usually 2%.
Okay.
But I can verify again tomorrow. We have our meeting again tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll ask again.
So anyway, that's where I'm at on it. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on increases tonight.
I will just throw it out there that we do have a request from some of the building administrators to make salary adjustments as well. Knowing what the bottom line was, I think I would hesitate to make a lot of changes, and we would try to work with it within whatever number you're comfortable putting in the budget. But I think that if we could have the 3% amount, it would give us a little bit more flexibility to maybe do some increases at 2, some at 2.5, and maybe some at 3. We do have a significant need with our office, especially our support staff that are not covered by collective bargaining agreements. We need to make some adjustments.
Right, and I guess my other concern in that is we all also know what's going on in the whole country as far as the hiring market, and if we don't keep pace, we're going to lose employees. They're going to go elsewhere, and we're not going to be able to fill those spots with reliable people. So
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Even as a new employee, we just did. We
That's
just
really
did
funny to
market
watch from this
increases,
side.
and I was only there 35 days because they have to, because they're losing nurses and the cost of living is up so much. So it's kind of everywhere, and you got to kind of do something. So I agree with Andy. I don't know if you're looking for a vote tonight, but that's just my
No,
opinion.
no. This is just a conversation at this point. I think I don't even know. We are gonna add a meeting for November 30th. So we'll have an extra crack at this. If you can't make it, I understand. It's short notice. But certainly, if you have questions for that, give them to me and I can run through them. But we definitely, we want to take the time to go through this as much as we can. And we'll have another after that. I don't have to schedule for me. The first, we have 12/6. And 12/7 is the last one before the first presentation to the budget committee, which I believe is on 12/16.
Mhm.
And then I think we've got a meeting on the 21st, right? And then we've got at least one, I think, in January too. That's the time we really have to have things tightened up. But yeah, if we add the 30th, we've got 2 solid meetings before we initially present to the MBC. So I think that should be a good amount
Andy,
of
what
time.
did you say? Tuesday, November 30th?
Yep.
What time?
Um,
Like 6:15?
yeah, I think our default is 6:15 for now.
Okay, I'm all set.
So anything else that anybody wants to ask or talk about, or numbers from this that you want to know about tonight? It's a lot to. Oh, are there highlights or anything specific in the addendums at the end that you guys want to point out?
Yeah,
Things
sure.
that we should know about?
Well, I have the rosters in here, so all of the rosters will coincide with the budget lines within the budget. You'll notice, for Melanie, that you're new, that over on the left side on in the roster, those are the account numbers that coincide with the budget. And then after the rosters, I have the co-curriculars, which I mentioned earlier. I've added those in here so that you can see what programs are running or not running, or merged together. I have the district assessment in here as well. I've added your surplus history. I've also added your tax rate history. And I've added your trust funds. And then I've added that technology initiative that I talked about earlier. Well, I mentioned earlier. So those are the items that are within your packet tonight. There will be more coming forth. You'll have the enrollment, you'll have the high school tuition. Those are some of the things I'm still working through at this time.
And Kathy did, as soon as Amber put this together, she did put it on the website so that public had access to every document that you received this evening.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm just looking at trust funds now, so if anybody has anything to say, go right ahead.
Andy, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So is this what we have tonight accessible for the public?
Yep, Patty just mentioned that we put this on the website.
Okay, because I've had a couple of questions to find out if we had whatever surplus amount that we gave back to offset taxes.
Yep.
Some residents were asking where was it from, so they would just have to go through and see where there's a minus from.
Right. We have the actual amounts listed within the budget. And then usually by the time we get to the MBC meeting, I have a document at that point that shows them kind of merged together so that they are a little more of a summary.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So we'll have that by the time we get to the MBC.
Okay. Because obviously field trips is a big, huge cut because nobody went anywhere.
Right.
So they were just wondering what parts that, we didn't use.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be hard to say because it wasn't a normal year. There was a lot of things we just couldn't do.
Right. Like there was some extra funds that were in transportation because we didn't utilize the full transportation, the busing company because there weren't enough buses. I just want to make sure it was on. I know that in some of the coursework, people didn't do staff development or there was limited staff development. Those were some of the lines I can think of that jumped out at me.
And
Some of
stuff
the
that we thought
co-curriculars.
that we paid, and then turned out we were able to pay with COVID money, and
Right. That's another.
it was a weird freaking year.
Yeah, we used a lot of CARES and ESSER funding, so that covered some of the items. So
Right. Do we have a that's what my next note was. Do we have a listing of the COVID money that we got and what we used it towards?
We just put out we can do a summary on the ESSER2 grant because we're on our third now. And we did just, you may have received the survey that we just sent out. So before we do any of our activities for the ESSER3 grant, which is the newest grant, we are required to get public input on what the priorities are from our community members, our parents, our area agencies, on what the priorities are for using those funds. So we did that, and then from there we'll develop our spending plan,
Okay.
and we'll share that.
So the other question I have, do we have a list put together of items that we purchased because we had surplus that we voted on to upgrade the library and the,
It would be in the minutes, but I don't think we created a separate document each time you voted. So they would be individual motions in the minutes.
is there a way that we could put it together?
It would just require somebody taking the time to do it. I mean, it's in the minutes, but I'm not sure. We're pretty shorthanded right now. I will ask and do my best, but I don't know that we'd have it ready in the next meeting or two.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay,
it
I
is
can
there. The
look.
information's there in the minutes.
Okay.
All the votes that were taken.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Is there a way to include, we have the stipend schedule for the co-curriculars. How about a stipend schedule for certified personnel that are receiving for other than co-curriculars?
So like that curriculum development one and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's something you can do, or is that
There is a section for extra assignment stipends that I think breaks them out by category. The curriculum work is really sort of up for grabs. So teachers just sign up if they want to do curriculum work over the summer, and they fill out a time slip, and then we can allocate up to what the bottom line in the budget. But there's no set schedule or staff names that would be associated with that yet because it's summer work. But the extra assignment stipends, there should be a list in the
Yep.
budget. Is
Page
there, Amber?
35.
Okay.
So underneath the extra assignments, we list out what the duty is and what the associated amount is with that duty. So for instance, like under Three Rivers, there's an after school supervisor and there's a dollar value mentor and then an associated dollar and so forth.
Yeah, that's good.
We try to give as much information embedded for you so that as you're going down, you know what's in that line.
Yeah, I can figure out from here. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Andy, I have a question on page 67. So when some of these items are cut, would that be a question for the principals to find out why they were cut? Was it just nobody participating, or we just couldn't afford the project?
Oh, okay. So the athletic directors from both Three Rivers and Pembroke Academy sit down with members of the collective bargaining agreement. That's part of what has to be done when we change the schedule. And they go through and they just look at activities that may not have an advisor or there's no interest, and they just move things around. There wasn't a big dollar difference. So sometimes they combine activities, eliminate, add, and they all sit down and work on that together.
So the ones that show cut, those weren't cut because we couldn't afford it. We just
No.
probably had no one to teach it or no
Right.
interest in it.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Something dollar difference from the last time you received the budget.
The record.
That included, it's time to go home.
Maybe. Anything else that we want to ask tonight? Okay. Like I said, MBC is day after tomorrow. I think town budget is ready, and we're going to take a look at that. Our next meeting we'll have on the 30th at 6:15. That's an added meeting, and that will be another like tonight. It's going to be a work session focused on the budget. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is 12/7 at 6:15, and that will be a regular business meeting with the normal type agenda, but there will definitely be time there to talk a lot about the budget as well. Any remaining questions that people have, any new information. I think you said something was coming in on 12/1. Is that the retirement?
Mhm.
So we'll get an update on that. I assume for the most part, Amber's going to join us from here on out for a while.
There's a conflict on on the 30th that you added a meeting.
Okay.
So you are the first district to have your budget. So the next several weeks, Amber's going to be at the other districts presenting their budgets.
Okay.
So on the 30th, I told her that I would cover and bring back any questions that I wasn't able to answer.
Okay, that's fine, and we can use it too to just kind of talk about our goals and the increases and things like that too. So hopefully it won't be multiple hours, but we can make good use of the time, and then we can kind of organize our questions and give them to Patty to take back, so that we have answers on the 7th. So that's it for now. I don't have my schedule in front of me. Is there? We just had AREA. Do we have exec board or anything coming up that you think we're clear for a little while? Okay. Okay. So. Oh yeah, there was a meeting added on December 8th for AREA. That's right. Super fun. Okay. Anything else before we go? If not, I'll accept the motion to adjourn. And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor at 7:43? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Fantastic. Thanks, everybody.